a cruel joke. The neon-lit quarters of Baranthek's citadel exuded the kind of decadent power that reeked of arrogance. Purple light spilled across crystalline walls and golden fixtures casting angular shadows that danced like predators. Jackson Reed stood at the center of it all, battle-worn and unimpressed, his armor still carrying carbon scoring from a recent firefight. The mercenary's stubble-covered jaw was clenched tightly, his patience eroding with every drawn-out breath. Baron Thex lounged lazily atop a crystalline throne shaped like the twisted roots of a dead tree. His emerald skin shimmered with a reptilian gloss under the light, his silver eyes filled with mirthless amusement. Surrounded by heavily armed guards whose fingers twitched near their triggers, he was the image of a creature who believed himself invincible. "My dear human," he began, voice slithering like oil across polished stone. "Surely you understand times are difficult. Credits don't come easily these days." Jackson's eyes narrowed. "We had a deal, Thex. I cleaned out your Ravager infestation. My ship's half crippled from the job. Now pay me." The Baron's laughter rang out like shattering crystal, sharp and mocking. "Oh, I assure you I prepared a far more valuable form of compensation." He raised a hand. Two of his guards turned and vanished behind a massive door adorned with alien carvings. Jackson's fingers twitched near his blaster, but he didn't move. He'd played in enough high-stakes games to know when violence wasn't yet on the table. "I don't have time for games," he growled. "My ship is hanging together with duct tape and spite." The ornate doors reopened. The guards emerged pushing a wooden cart, an anachronistic oddity in a world of shimmering tech. But what lay atop it froze Jackson's words mid-sentence. A woman. No, not just a woman. A being of such haunting, ethereal beauty that for a split second Jackson forgot how to breathe. She lay still, her frame delicate but unbowed. Pale green skin glistened like jade. Midnight black hair cascaded around her like liquid night. A beige gown clung to her curves in a way that felt like deliberate cruelty, cinched at the waist, cut to reveal just enough to stir instincts he tried to bury. But it was her eyes that hit him hardest. Open, awake, sharp with defiance. There was fury there and intellect. Not a helpless damsel, but a storm bottled behind stillness. "Meet my daughter," Thex said with a theatrical flourish. "Paralyzed from the waist down due to an unfortunate incident. Damaged goods, as the humans say. Quite useless to me now. But perhaps you can find value in her." The woman's voice cut through the air like a plasma blade. "Father, you—" Silence. Thex's voice snapped like a whip. "The deal is done. Guards help our guest load his new acquisition onto his ship." Jackson recoiled. "You're giving away your daughter." "I believe I just did." It was a line drawn in blood. Jackson looked at Thella again as the guards began roughly moving her onto a hover stretcher. Her glare never wavered, not even as her motionless legs dragged behind her. He wanted to say no, wanted to refuse this madness. But behind the bravado was reality. His ship was dying, and if he walked away now, Thex would likely have him shot just for the inconvenience. "Fine," he spat, "but this isn't over." "Oh," Thex purred, "I very much hope not." As Jackson followed the guards down the long corridor, the sound of the throne room fading behind him, he felt Thella's gaze drilling into the side of his face. He said nothing, just kept walking, trying not to dwell on the strange tightness in his chest. When they were finally out of range of Thex's guards, she spoke low, sharp, and dangerous. "If you think I'm going to play the helpless cargo, you can flip for profit, human. You've got another thing coming." Jackson's lips twitched despite himself. "Lady, I'm just trying to get off this rock without being shot in the back. We can discuss your market value later." A flicker, not quite a smile, ghosted across her lips. She said nothing more as they reached his ship, the Stellar Vagrant, a beat-up but reliable freighter that had gotten him out of more death traps than he cared to count. The guards dumped her unceremoniously into the cargo bay and left without a word. The bay's lights flickered as the ship powered up. Jackson strapped himself into the pilot's chair, his eyes drifting toward the open corridor behind him where Thla now sat upright, her gown pooling around her like liquid starlight. "You're making a mistake," she said coldly. "If you think you can sell me—" "Didn't say I would," he replied, not turning around. "Every black market buyer you know is in my father's pocket. Try to sell me and you'll end up dead." His jaw clenched. He didn't like being threatened, especially not by cargo. But there was something different about her. I'm open to better ideas, he muttered. I have one, she said smoothly. Information. On my father. Weapons trafficking. Illegal pacts with the Ravagers. Enough dirt to bankrupt a dozen governments. That got his attention. He turned slowly, studying her again. Her eyes were steady, not pleading, not desperate, tactical. Why would you betray your own father? He asked. Her laugh was hollow. Because he betrayed me first. I stopped being his daughter the day he decided paralysis meant I had no worth. Jackson moved a step closer, instinctively evaluating the truth in her words. You expect me to believe this isn't some elaborate setup? You don't have a choice, she said bluntly. Your reactor is failing. I can hear the rhythms off. You need money. I have information. We make a deal, or we both lose. Jackson cursed under his breath. She was right about the engine. Damn it. Talk, he said finally. Not yet, she countered. We strike a deal. I give you everything I know, and you help me walk again. His eyes narrowed. Restricted medical facilities. Experimental tech. It's real. And if you help me get there, you'll get everything. Jackson stared at her for a long moment. The look in her eyes wasn't hope. It was war. And somehow he knew his life had just become 1,000 times more complicated. Eyes that would not yield. The stellar vagrant drifted through the upper stratosphere, its fusion engines humming with the fatigue of a system held together by sheer willpower and half-functioning parts. In the dim cargo hold-turned living space, Thilla sat upright against the wall, her hands folded calmly in her lap. Her alien skin shimmered faintly beneath the cold blue emergency lights, and though her legs lay motionless beneath her, her presence filled the room with an intensity Jackson hadn't felt since the war. He leaned against the frame of the door, leading into the cockpit, arms crossed, studying her like a puzzle that refused to yield to logic. She wasn't just beautiful, she was composed, calculating, and disturbingly difficult to read. No sobbing, no panic, just those burning eyes watching him as though she were dissecting him one layer at a time. You haven't said anything since we left, Jackson remarked, keeping his tone light but neutral. Most people scream, beg, or curse after being handed over by their father like livestock. She didn't flinch. And how would any of those things change my situation? He blinked momentarily, thrown off by the sheer calm in her voice. So what? You've accepted your fate. No, she said flatly. I'm analyzing it. There was steel in her tone, not bitterness, not resignation, strategy. Jackson stepped forward, slowly resting his knuckles on the edge of a cargo crate across from her. I get it, you're tough, but let's cut the act. You've just been exiled, crippled, and tossed to a mercenary. You don't get points for pretending this is normal. I don't want your points, she said. I want your engine to stop sputtering before we're stranded between moons. You need credits. I need access. We both want something. Let's skip the emotional grandstanding and talk logistics. He barked a surprised laugh. Are you seriously negotiating with the guy who technically owns you right now? No one owns me, she said, and for the first time there was fire. Not a flicker, an inferno barely restrained. Not my father, not you, not the empire that wrote me off the moment I couldn't walk. And if you try to sell me, I promise you won't survive long enough to regret it. Jackson stared at her, taken aback by the sudden fury behind her words. It wasn't just defiance, it was truth. A woman who had learned to fight battles without using her legs. A woman who hadn't stopped being dangerous, she'd simply stopped pretending she was safe. You really think you've got leverage here? He asked, stepping closer. I know I do, she replied, matching his gaze without blinking. Because you're not the man my father thought you were. If you were, you'd have already tried to lock me in stasis or chain me to the cargo rack. He didn't deny it, because she was right. Instead, he changed tactics. You said something about information. Let's say I'm interested. What's the pitch? She exhaled slowly as if weighing her next words not for effect, but for trust. My father has been dealing weapons to enemies of the sector. Experimental tech, biochemical weapons, neural disruptors, you name it. That's not exactly shocking, Jackson replied. He's a galactic arms dealer in everything but title. But I have proof, she said. Shipping manifests, private comms, account transfers routed through proxies. I've been compiling it for years, waiting for the right moment to leak it. Why now? Because he gave me away, she said, voice suddenly hollow. Like I was trash. And now I want to set fire to everything he built. He studied her. The way her voice didn't waver. The way she didn't blink when she talked about burning her father's empire to the ground. It wasn't revenge. It was precision. Purpose. He felt his defenses cracking. Okay, he said, slowly. Say I believe you. Say I help. What do you want in return? Her answer was immediate. Help me walk again. He blinked. That's not something I can promise. But you can try, she said. Nexus 9, the research ward in section K7. They have access to neural interface prototypes technology that's been buried under so much bureaucracy no one's dared to test it. Jackson ran a hand through his hair. That facility's locked down like a vault. That's why I'm offering you, she replied with a spark of wicked logic. You go in through the front door, I'll go through the floor. He stared. You want me to serve you up to Krell on a silver platter? I want you to distract him, she corrected, while I break into his lab and hijack the technology meant for men who'd rather see me dead than whole. He hesitated and she sensed it. I'm not asking you to believe in me, she said. I'm asking you to bet on me. There's a difference. Jackson looked at her again. Not just the fire in her voice, but the cold logic beneath it. A woman who had spent her life being underestimated, tossed aside, and left to rot, now planning the theft of a technology that could rewrite her destiny. And maybe his too. He stepped back, crossing his arms. 16 hours to Nexus 9. You've got until then to convince me this isn't suicide. Her lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. I don't need 16 hours. I know, he said, walking toward the cockpit. That's what worries me. Behind him in the dimness, Thla's eyes followed him like a storm calculating the wind. She wasn't hoping he'd help her. She knew he would. The pact in the dark. Jackson stared at the glowing flight console, watching the stars stretch and blur as the stellar vagrant slid into deep space. The hum of the engines, irregular and fading, served as a constant reminder of how close to dead this ship really was. Every gauge blinked red. Every monitor screamed caution. He could patch hulls and rewire conduits, but reactor instability, that needed credits. Big ones. And his only ticket sat in the cargo bay, planning a heist with the kind of calm only someone raised among snakes could possess. He sighed and rose from his seat, making his way back through the flickering corridor until he reached her. Thla hadn't moved, but her posture had changed. She was leaning forward now, bracing herself on her arms with practiced control, reviewing a holographic schematic projected from the data pad on her lap. Krell won't deal unless he thinks he's getting something he wants, she said without looking up. You'll need to spin it like a trade. You mean like you, he said flatly. I mean exactly me. You're a person, not a crate of stolen plasma rifles. She glanced up at him then. That's the first halfway decent thing you've said since we met. Don't get used to it. Her fingers continued manipulating the schematics, her voice low but unrelenting. You'll tell Krell you acquired me through unofficial channels. Say my father double-crossed you and this was your leverage. It gives you reason to ask for a meeting. He'll accept. He'll also try to kill me. She didn't deny it. That's what the guns are for. He exhaled hard and leaned against the bulkhead. Let's say this works. Let's say we get into Nexus 9. What's your plan once you reach the lab? I accessed the neural interface prototype, she said. If they're intact, I'll begin integration immediately. There's no time for surgical prep. I've already studied the process. I'll do it myself. You're not a doctor. I'm not waiting for one, she said sharply. If I delay, the window closes. I lose my chance to ever walk again. And if it kills you, she shrugged. Then my father gets to bury a daughter he already considered dead. Jackson stared at her, silence pressing between them. This wasn't just desperation. It was something more dangerous, a conviction. She wasn't bargaining from weakness, she was planning from fury. He rubbed his face. Why do I get the feeling this is the stupidest smart idea I've ever agreed to? Because it is, she said. But it's also your only shot. He chuckled without humor. I should have taken the credits. Too late now. Her eyes met his, steady and sure. You're already part of this. There was no anger in her voice, no pleading, just truth laid bare between them. So we're allies now, he asked, pushing off the wall. For now. And later? She tilted her head just slightly. That depends on whether you betray me or not. He snorted. You never stop playing the game, do you? I can't afford to, she said simply. Jackson folded his arms, studying her. You've done this before, haven't you? What? Faked weakness. Used your position. Manipulated everyone in the room without them noticing. Her gaze turned unreadable. You think I wanted to survive the palace? No, he said. I think you had to, and you got very good at it. She didn't smile, but the air between them shifted warmer, if only for a second. I wasn't always like this, she said softly. But being discarded teaches you things, like how to make pain useful. Jackson's jaw tightened. He knew that lesson all too well. He took a seat across from her on a supply crate. What exactly is this neural tech supposed to do? Reconnect the spinal pathway, she answered. Replace the signal loss with biosynthetic relays. Restore motor function, maybe even enhance it, if it works. And if it doesn't, I die, she said. Or worse. But at least I'll die trying. Her certainty was maddening. He didn't know if he admired it or wanted to throttle her for it. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. There's one thing I still don't get. Only one. Why tell me all this? You barely know me. Hell, you threatened me 10 minutes ago. Because she said, voice quieter now. I need someone who isn't afraid of impossible odds. Someone already living on borrowed time. You look like that kind of man. Jackson met her eyes and saw something there, something that hadn't been present before. Not manipulation, not performance. Trust. Fragile. Tentative. But real. I've made a lot of bad decisions, he said. Helping you might top the list. But you're still here, she replied. He couldn't argue with that. She turned the schematic off, the image fading into darkness. Only the soft glow of the stars outside remained, casting her features in half shadow. You said I was a person, not cargo, she said. Then treat me like one, partner, not product. Jackson rose slowly and extended his hand. Then let's make it official. She stared at it, then with effort and intention reached out and grasped it. Her grip was firm, warm, alive with purpose. A pact made in the dark. Twin shadows over Nexus 9. Nexus 9 appeared like a jagged crown against the canvas of stars, an enormous artificial fortress suspended in orbit above a shattered moon. The station gleamed cold silver, wrapped in layers of electromagnetic shielding defense satellites and security patrols. It was a monument to paranoia disguised as progress, and it was exactly the kind of place where dangerous technology went to be buried and forgotten. Jackson guided the stellar vagrant toward the docking vector. His grip on the controls was tight, jaw set as the automated landing protocol engaged. Behind him, Thotla floated in the zero-G hallway, her upper body steady, as she adjusted her gown into something slightly less regal, though it still looked far too elegant for sabotage. I still don't know how you plan to get into Section K7 without setting off 100 alarms, Jackson muttered, as warning lights blinked across the screen. That place has biometric locks, pressure sensors, and a defense grid that cooks people on contact. Thala's voice was calm, because those systems weren't designed to detect someone crawling through maintenance shafts in a backless gown. He shot her a look. You really enjoy making me nervous, don't you? She arched a brow. Is that what you call it when you stare? He didn't reply, mostly because she wasn't wrong. Docking clamps latched onto the ship with a dull metallic thud. An automated greeting crackled over the comm system, dry-clipped and undoubtedly monitored. Welcome to Nexus 9. State your business and submit credentials. Jackson keyed the response. Delivery of biological cargo acquired on Citadel 17. Possible private audience requested with Lord Krell. There was a pause. Then proceed to Hangar Bay 12. Lord Krell will receive you. Too easy, Jackson muttered. That's never good. Of course not, Fluff said, already pulling herself toward the access panel behind the cockpit. It means he's expecting to outplay you. And you're going to let me walk straight into that. I'm going to let you walk in like bait, she corrected, lifting the panel to reveal a crawl space lined with junction nodes. While I take the side door. Jackson stood and blocked her for a moment. You sure you can do this? Her eyes met his with pure steel. I've had to lift my entire body weight with my arms since I was 12. What I can't do is not try. His throat tightened. He stepped aside. She vanished into the crawl space like a shadow slipping between cracks. The moment her figure disappeared, Jackson felt the ship go colder. He holstered his sidearm, straightened his jacket, and opened the hatch. Hangar Bay 12 reeked of sterilized steel and quiet menace. Lord Darius Krell stood at the far end of the chamber, flanked by 4 guards in dark armor. His coat was deep crimson, his face too symmetrical to be entirely real. Artificial enhancements glittered along his temples, and his smile was as warm as a corpse. Jackson Reed, Krell said, smoothly stepping forward. A pleasure I didn't expect. And yet, perhaps fate is feeling generous today. Jackson offered a dry smirk. I hear you've got an eye for interesting acquisitions. Your message intrigued me. Krell's eyes glinted. The Baron's daughter in your custody, that would explain the little purge happening on Citadel 17. Jackson's face didn't move. He gave her to me, called her damaged goods. Krell chuckled a sound with no joy in it. Thex always lacked imagination. He gestured toward the far wall. Shall we talk somewhere more private? Jackson nodded, pretending not to notice the 2 guards flanking him immediately. Meanwhile, below the deck, in several meters of shielding, Thala slithered through the service tunnels like a ghost. Sweat clung to her brow as she dragged herself forward, arms straining against gravity and pain. The schematics in her mind led her through a maze of heat exchangers and coolant systems. Every junction she passed brought her closer to the lab. Her breath came faster now, not from exertion but anticipation. This is it. A grate opened before her, revealing a dimly lit service corridor just adjacent to the experimental medical bay. She paused, pressing her hand against the wall to steady herself. You've come too far to fail now. Behind her, in a world of diplomatic theater and veiled threats, Jackson followed Krell into a gleaming chamber lined with hollow screens and security feeds. One of them displayed a heat signature flickering deep below. Krell gestured toward a seat. Let's talk terms. Jackson smiled thinly, even as he felt the shift in pressure, the weight of a trap already springing shut. And somewhere beneath it all, crawling towards salvation, a princess gritted her teeth and whispered to herself, just a little farther, a dangerous offer. The sterile chill of Nexus 9's experimental wings seeped into Thalia's skin as she emerged from the maintenance tunnel. Her arms ached from the crawl, but her breath was calm, measured. She had trained for this, prepared for it in solitude while her father's court whispered eulogies behind her back. Now, at the edge of the forbidden, she stared down the corridor where salvation might lie, or obliteration. The walls pulsed faint blue, lit by embedded fibers humming with energy. Security sensors ticked in rhythmic patterns, just as she remembered from the schematics. With a tap on her wrist, she looped the sensor's visual sweep using the stolen code she'd memorized from an old palace engineer. The red field flickered, then went dark. The path was open for now. Meanwhile, above her, in a very different battlefield, Jackson sat across from Lord Krell in the heart of the command chamber. You've done well to reach me so directly, Krell said smoothly, steepling his fingers. His voice carried the oily charm of a man used to orchestrating executions with a nod. Jackson grunted. I've done worse for less. Krell smiled. Ah, mercenaries, always chasing the next payday. But what you carry, that's not just profit, it's history. Spare me the poetry, Jackson replied. Let's talk numbers. Krell's artificial eyes gleamed. 5 million credits. Jackson didn't move. A round number. A deliberate one, Krell said. The same value her father's weapons contracts hold. If I can't buy the Empire, I'll take the daughter and let her ransom me the rest. Jackson leaned back, pretending to consider. Inside, he was timing every second. Buy her time. Keep Krell guessing. Don't flinch. Beneath their conversation, Thalia glided down the hall using only her arms. She reached the sealed doors of Section K7's core lab. A retinal scanner blinked to life. She didn't pause. From her sleeve, she pulled a thin strip of cloned biofilm, a synthetic scan harvested from one of the project's original scientists. Pressed against the panel, it flashed green. Access granted. The door hissed open. Inside the lab was a shrine to forbidden science. Suspended tanks lined the walls, each housing embryonic technologies denied by most civilizations. Neural interface scaffolds, regeneration pods, core thread spinal overlays. At the center stood a surgical unit, cold and waiting. Her gaze locked on the pod, marked Neural Interface Prototype V17, unapproved, unstable. Perfect. Above, Krell frowned. You're stalling, Reed. I'm negotiating, Jackson replied. I'm also wondering why a man like you is so desperate to own a broken girl. Krell's smile froze. Desperation implies risk. I'm past that. What she carries isn't just data. It's proof. If she's alive, I control the flow. If she's dead, I erase the threat. Either way, I win. Jackson fought the urge to reach for his weapon. In the lab, Thla had already stripped away the top half of her gown, exposing the vertebrae damaged in the explosion years ago. The neural interface hovered into position lights, flickering across its polished segments. A soft hum rose as it began scanning her spine. Alignment complete. Insert modulo. She didn't hesitate. Yes. The module hissed as it locked into her spinal groove. A sudden jolt surged through her nerves. Her mouth opened in a soundless scream as the prototype fused to her nervous system. Her vision exploded in color and heat. Her hands clenched the table. In Krell's chamber, warning lights flared. Unauthorized access, K7 breach detected. What Krell barked, spinning toward the display. Jackson smiled tightly. Guess she wasn't so broken after all. Alarms erupted. Krell slapped a console. Seal the wing. Deploy internal security now. Jackson rose. You're too late. Below, Thela arched at her back, sweat pouring down her neck. She could feel something surging down her spine. Sparks of electricity danced across her thighs. Muscles long silent twitched. A toe flexed. Her lungs seized in shock. She laughed. The laugh echoed through the empty lab, wild and alive. Above, Krell stared at the feed in disbelief. She's integrating it. That's impossible. It's her body now, Jackson said. And you just gave her the key. Krell spun toward him. You planned this. Jackson shrugged. She did. I'm just the transport. Krell reached for his weapon. Jackson was faster. One shot. Non-lethal. The Lord slumped to the floor, twitching. Jackson muttered, you talk too much. Down below, Thusla pulled herself upright. Her legs hung useless for a breath, then twitched. One knee lifted. She gritted her teeth. Pain seared through her hips, and she stood, wobbling, shaking, but standing. The room blurred with tears, heat, and clarity. I'm not broken, she whispered. The awakening. The hum of the prototype echoed inside her skull like a second heartbeat. Thla stood trembling in the center of the lab, drenched in sweat, her muscles twitching in sharp waves of reanimation. The neural interface glowed along her spine like living circuitry, and with every breath, she felt her body rebelling and resurrecting all at once. She took a step. Her right foot slammed into the floor like thunder. Her knees buckled, pain spiked through her hips, but she didn't fall. She caught herself with trembling legs, her fingers digging into the metal edge of the surgical table. Another breath, another step. This time she didn't stumble. The pain was unbearable. The pleasure was worse. Every dormant nerve in her body had awakened at once, screaming, hungering, weeping from years of silence. It wasn't just sensation, it was overload. Her brain flooded with data, temperature, pressure, biofeedback loops she'd never known existed. Her legs didn't just move, they roared. And at the center of it all, one thought rang clear. I'm whole again. But even as euphoria gripped her, danger seeped through the cracks. She staggered toward the nearest console, hands shaking. The interface registered her movements instantly, responding to her mere proximity, sensing her biometrics through the air. Her new nervous system was bleeding into every circuit, turning the lab itself into an extension of her. She wasn't just using the tech. She was becoming it. Above her, Jackson sprinted down the corridor as station alarms howled around him. He'd left Krell stunned and disarmed in his own command room, his security forces in chaos from the triggered fail-safes Thla had activated on her way in. He'd rerouted the fire doors, silenced a few cameras, jammed an elevator, just enough chaos to give her space. And now he was running toward her, because something was wrong. She wasn't answering the comms. The moment he reached the lift outside section K7, the door burst open and she was there. Standing, breathing hard, skin flushed and shimmering like polished emerald. His heart skipped. Thla, he started. Then he saw her eyes, glowing. Not metaphorically, literally. A deep, unnatural gold had bled into her irises, pulsing in time with the lights of the station. The interface had done more than restore her mobility. It had elevated her, cracked open some ancient part of her biology, and fed it raw, unfiltered power. She was radiant, she was terrifying, and she was smiling. "Everything works," she said, her voice breathless. "I can feel everything." She stumbled slightly. He caught her without hesitation, his arms wrapping around her waist. Her skin was hot to the touch, not fever energy. "You're overheating," he said. "Your nervous system's overcompensating." "I know," she whispered, eyes fluttering shut for a second. It's it's too much. I need something to ground it." "Like what?" Her hands gripped his jacket. "You." Her lips met his with a desperation that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with raw neural discharge. The moment they touched, the overload bled into him like lightning through a conductor. His muscles stiffened, his vision flickered. For a terrifying second, it felt like their brains were connecting through skin. And then it passed. The surge settled. Her body stabilized. They pulled apart, breathless. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I didn't mean." "You saved your own life," he said, stunned. "And maybe mine." She leaned against him, forehead pressed to his collar. "The interface isn't just rewriting my spine. It's rewriting everything: sensitivity, hormones, perception. I'm not thinking clearly. Every part of me is screaming to connect." He swallowed. "Is that what this is, biological need?" She looked up at him, eyes still glowing but softer now. "No, that was always there. The interface just turned the volume up." Jackson brushed a strand of damp hair from her face. "So we're dealing with supercharged attraction, overclocked hormones, and psychic feedback loops. And a security team heading this way in less than 60 seconds, she added. He exhaled sharply. "Of course we are." They moved together without speaking. Down the corridor, through a bypassed emergency hatch into a docking bay that wasn't supposed to be accessible, but Thlo's mind was already talking to the systems. One wave of her hand and the hangar doors opened. Jackson grinned. "You always this dangerous." She turned, still unsteady but smiling like a predator. "Only when I'm falling in love and being hunted at the same time." Behind them, bootsteps echoed. Ahead, the stellar vagrant waited. They ran. Together. Fire and flight. The docking bay shuddered as the emergency sirens screamed to life, bathing the corridor in angry red light. Overhead, the automated defenses sparked with erratic pulses, struggling to keep pace with the internal override surging through the station's systems, courtesy of Thlo's enhanced nervous link. Jackson didn't wait for the second alarm. He dragged her forward, half running, half carrying her down the final stretch toward the stellar vagrant, now blinking green on the launch pad like a beacon of hope and foolish defiance. "They're coming in hot," he growled, glancing over his shoulder as the distant hiss of a pressure seal breaking echoed from behind. I know Thela's snapped legs trembling beneath her. I can feel their bootsteps. 13 soldiers, 2 heavy weapons, pulse rifles primed. You feel their weapons. "My nervous system is linked to the station." She gasped, nearly collapsing against him. "It's reading threats before they appear on sensors." "Well, tell it to shut the hell up and help me launch this thing." They stumbled up the ramp. Jackson slapped the control panel, sealing the hatch behind them, just as a plasma round struck the outer hull with a burst of heat and light. The shockwave nearly sent them tumbling as the ship rocked sideways. "Shields are already down to 75%, Thela shouted, gripping the wall. "The interface is feeding too much sensory data. I can't stabilize output unless I'm..." "Touching me," Jackson finished. "Yeah, I got that memo loud and clear last time." He didn't wait. He pulled her into the co-pilot seat, placed her hand firmly over his, and slammed the ignition sequence. The stellar vagrant roared as if offended, its aging engine core flaring with unstable power. "I need you focused," he muttered, "no matter how hot your circuits are running." "I'm focused." She breathed, her voice trembling, but the neural feedback is amplifying everything: pressure, gravity. It's like being trapped inside a star about to collapse. Outside, the force doors groaned under impact. Krell's soldiers were breaching the bay with heavy ordnance. "I hope this ship hates them more than it hates me," Jackson muttered, engaging the thrusters. The vagrant lifted off the platform like a beast woken from hibernation. Plasma fire chased their tail. Shields screamed under impact. Thela gasped and clutched his forearm tighter. "I can feel the structural strain, bulkhead fractures, hull fatigue. Give me access to diagnostics." Jackson blinked. "You're what now?" But she was already in. Her hand pulsed against the console as if syncing with the ship's nervous system. The UI flickered, then realigned. Power redirected. Stabilizers corrected mid-drift. He stared. You just healed my ship. No, she said breathlessly. We did. The ship's responding to us both as if we're part of its core logic. Your instincts, my enhancements, it's bridging something that shouldn't be possible. You're rewriting physics during a gunfight. I'm multitasking. Outside the bay, the magnetic shield failed, and a final explosion hurled them into vacuum. Jackson gritted his teeth and punched the jump drive, but the system buzzed back in protest. Jump coordinates corrupted, he snapped. Field interference is too dense. Thlo leaned toward the nav controls. Her eyes flared gold, her pupils dilated. Give me a heading, she whispered, anywhere off-grid. He called out numbers. She blinked, and the nav console shimmered, accepting raw vectors through her interface as if they'd come from the ship's own AI. The vagrant shuddered, then surged forward with a banshee scream, ripping through the remaining blockade just as several interceptor ships rounded the bend. Stars stretched, time warped, and they vanished into hyperspace. Silence settled around them in the cockpit like smoke after gunfire. Jackson's hands trembled on the yoke. Thilla slumped beside him, soaked in sweat, her skin still glowing faintly from the exertion. You okay? He asked quietly. She didn't answer at first. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, but her gaze was sharp, focused. I'm adapting, she said finally, but it's accelerating. The interface isn't just healing me, it's evolving. The jump drive synced Jackson. That wasn't tech. That was us. He met her eyes and saw something wild and beautiful there. You merged with the ship. I merged with you first. His breath caught. Thla. She reached across the console, touched his face. Don't say anything. Just feel it. And he did. Not just her touch. Her mind, her fear, her joy, her adrenaline. For a moment, Jackson felt as if he had grown new nerves, and they all connected to her. She leaned closer, her lips brushed his ear. We're not just running anymore, she whispered. We're becoming something new. Outside the viewport, the stars curved softly, and ahead the shadowed belt of an asteroid field stretched into the dark like a hiding place for myths. The Rogue Haven. The asteroid field loomed before them like a cemetery of forgotten wars, a drifting graveyard of shattered rock and abandoned wreckage. Deep within its core, nestled against the shadow of a dormant comet, an invisible station flickered to life. Cloaked in radiation noise and forgotten coordinates, it waited like a relic of defiance. Jackson guided the stellar vagrant through the field with measured precision. Thrusters flared and cut rhythmically, threading between debris that would tear lesser ships apart. This is the place, he asked, eyes flicking toward Thla. Yes, she said quietly. Her voice had changed, calmer, steadier, but the gold still shimmered in her eyes. Station Orus 3, a ghost facility, long decommissioned. But Dr. Elena Reed never left. She made this place her ark. For what? For all the knowledge the galaxy tried to bury. The station recognized them before Jackson even hailed. The hangar bay doors creaked open, revealing a dim, pressurized chamber bathed in cold blue light. No alarms, no weapons, just silence like the breath held before revelation. The ship settled. They stepped into the airlock together. Inside the halls were dust-coated, but intact. Data panels blinked faintly. Diagnostic drones hovered in standby. The entire station felt suspended as though waiting for the right moment to wake. That moment was now. The lights flared fully the instant Thilla crossed the threshold. Jackson instinctively reached for his weapon, but she raised a hand. It's responding to me. The interface. The station's systems recognized the neural signature. They moved deeper, past sealed laboratories and cryo-storage bays. Thla's steps grew more confident. With each quarter, her balance almost perfect. Her connection with the technology wasn't fading, it was expanding. At the heart of the station, a single door opened without prompt. Inside, surrounded by dormant monitors and archival hollows, stood a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and a wary expression. A data pad hovered beside her, flickering to life as she analyzed the newcomers. Well, the woman said, voice low and sharp, never thought I'd see you again, princess. Dr. Reed, Thla replied, I need your help. The woman's gaze dropped to Thla's legs, then to the neural shimmer running along her spine and arms. You activated the V-Series prototype. It activated me, Thilla said, and now it won't stop. Reed stepped forward. Her hand hovered inches from Thalla's shoulder, not touching, just scanning the energy radiating off her. You've bonded with it. But this isn't just standard stabilization, it's layered, recursive, something's anchoring the flux. Thilla didn't speak. Jackson did. It's me, he said. When we're in contact, her neural patterns stabilize. During the jump, she synced with the ship. With me. Reed turned expression unreadable. Physical proximity as an anchoring agent. Sympathetic biofeedback loops. That's not supposed to happen. It did, Thla said. Then there's more. Her hand slipped into Jackson's. I'm pregnant. Silence fell over the lab like a gravitational collapse. Reed's lips parted, stunned. That's impossible. Interbreeding between your species isn't naturally viable without heavy gene therapy. We didn't have time for therapy, Jackson muttered. It's not just viable, Thola continued, eyes shining. It's symbiotic. The neural readings stabilized further once I conceived. The baby is bridging the gap between our systems. Reed staggered back a step, eyes wide. Then you're not just the prototype, you're the convergence. The child is a living synthesis human, and Valtteri neurons fused through generational enhancement, which is exactly why Krell and my father will never allow it to survive, Thla whispered. It breaks the directive's fundamental law. Reed walked toward the main console, pulling up dozens of models and genome charts. The purity directive was built to prevent this, to stop genetic fusion. They'll see your child as an existential threat. And I see it as hope, Thla replied. The proof that difference doesn't weaken us, it perfects us. Jackson looked between them. So what do we do, Hyde? Reed shook her head. You can't, not for long. The prototype signal spike already pinged long-range sensors. You have a few hours at most before someone finds this place. Thilla turned to Jackson, her voice low. Then we make a choice. We stop running. We broadcast. Let them come. Reed's hands paused on the console. You're going to tell the galaxy, Thilla nodded, about my father, Krell, the directive, and the child. Jackson stared at her. They'll all come for us. They're coming anyway, she said. Let them come knowing why they're afraid. Reed stepped back and smiled something bright and dangerous behind her eyes. Then let's make history. The reckoning. They didn't knock. Thex's fleet arrived like a declaration carved into the sky. 6 dreadnoughts in diamond formation, cloaked in imperial green, flanked by precision-engineered interceptors. Each ship broadcast a silent threat: compliance or annihilation. Mere minutes later, Krell's armada ripped out of hyperspace like a virus, spiked, unpredictable, in dripping menace. His lead cruiser jammed every frequency but one, a repeating signal demanding surrender. Inside Orus 3, no one flinched. Thella stood at the command node, the golden neural lattice across her spine pulsing brighter with each second. She had become something unrecognizable human, and Valtteri fused by force and choice. Her gaze locked on the holographic star map. Every move the fleets made, she felt before it happened. They're not here to talk, Jackson muttered. His rifle was loaded. His stance said war. No, she said. They're here to erase proof I exist. Dr. Reed flicked switches on the comms console. Every channel's blocked, but deep relay bands. If we're going to show the galaxy the truth, it's now or never. Open it, Thla said. The lights dimmed, then the truth ignited across the stars. Thala's face filled every unblocked transmission. Pirate channels, fringe colonies, rebel servers, even secret directive networks. Behind her, Reed loaded visuals, genetic scans of the unborn child, neural fusion overlays, evidence of Thex's forced sterilization programs, Krell's illegal experiments on impure offspring. This is not a rebellion, Thla said in the message. It's a reveal. Everything they feared is real, and I am done hiding. Across thousands of systems, panic broke out, but in dozens more, silence turned to rallying cries. The purity directive was no longer law, it was exposed dogma. Then came the call. Thex's voice thundered through the comms. You disgrace your bloodline. Return now, and your execution will be painless. Tholo stood tall. I didn't disgrace it, I outgrew it. You think that thing inside you makes you special? It makes you unclean. I know, she replied, that it terrifies you. He cut the line. Krell's signal replaced it distorted and rage-laced. Broadcasting lies doesn't make you untouchable. Your father's weakness created you. I will correct it. Jackson leaned in. Let him try. Reed's voice came fast. Multiple boarding vessels incoming. They'll hit in 3 vectors. We've got maybe 5 minutes before breach. Thella raised her wrist. The station responded instantly. Energy surged through bulkheads. Railguns activated from old defensive grids. Emergency lockdowns snapped into place. And still her interface grew brighter. She's not just controlling it, Reed whispered. She is it. Thella's voice was calm. I am the system's conscience now. Jackson looked at her. You're glowing again. It's not just me, she whispered. It's the baby. He's amplifying the signal. His presence is stabilizing the whole array. Reed stared, stunned. He's broadcasting. Yes, Thella said. And he's telling me what to do. Moments later, the first shockwave hit the hull. Thex's soldiers entered the east corridor. Jackson moved to intercept, activating pulse turrets as he passed. He fought like a man protecting more than a station. He was protecting the only future that had ever made sense. In the core chamber, Thella locked eyes with the breach route. She extended her hands, and the door sealed in molten light. The soldiers outside screamed, their helmets backfired, neural links scrambled. Their weapons powered down in unison. The station wasn't just defending, it was disarming them. Thella inhaled deeply. She could hear the unborn heartbeat syncing with hers. The bond was no longer physical, it was quantum, ancestral, infinite. A second breach sounded from the south dock. Krell's assassins entered genetic purists bred for silence and death. But Reed rerouted atmosphere controls. The chamber vented, then compressed. They collapsed in seconds. This isn't a battle, Reed whispered. It's an execution. Nothla said. It's an awakening. But then the real threat arrived. Krell's main cruiser shifted position. A massive power spike surged from its core. Reed's readings confirmed it. They're powering an antimatter cannon. If they hit us with that, they'll destroy their own troops, Jackson said. They don't care, Flo whispered. They've lost control, and control is all they had. She reached across the console. The transmission reignited, this time live unfiltered. I am not asking for permission, she said aloud to the galaxy. I am being born again, and I'm bringing a future your tyrants can't survive. As Krell's cannon reached full charge, Thella activated the station's final system, a dormant wormhole generator deep in its engineering bay. It hummed to life like a forgotten god. What are you doing? Reed shouted. Thella turned to her, ending this. The child in the storm. The station was breaking apart. Cracks spidered across the hull. Gravity flickered in and out. Lights stuttered. The air grew sharp with ozone and fire. But at the heart of it all, Thella stood still as if untouched by the chaos. Her eyes were filled with light, not fear. Her hands, though trembling, were locked into the core interface. Jackson stood next to her, breathing hard. We don't have much time. Let them fire, Thella whispered. We're already beyond their reach. Krell's dreadnought hovered beyond the asteroid field antimatter cannon, pulsing with violent energy. On the display, the countdown to discharge was seconds from 0. Reed cursed. That shot will vaporize us. Nothla said softly. It'll miss. She reached deeper into the neural link, merging her consciousness with the station's systems. The child inside her pulsed in sync. He wasn't merely alive. He was helping, feeding her information, rewriting control algorithms in real time. Where Thla guided, he predicted. Together, they altered the very fabric of the station's defenses. The wormhole engine behind them surged. Then, just as Krell's cannon fired, Thla whispered a command. The wormhole spun, gravity vectors twisted, the antimatter beam hit but didn't impact. It vanished into the vortex. Milliseconds later, it re-emerged, redirected, mirrored straight back into Krell's ship. The dreadnought imploded. No explosion, just silence. Then a collapse so sudden the surrounding ships broke formation. Fragments of Krell's legacy rained across the void. Reed stared. You reflected a goddamn superweapon. Jackson didn't blink. She didn't. They did. He looked at her stomach glowing faintly beneath her skin. The child had done more than survive. He had acted, directed, chosen. But then came the price. The wormhole buckled. Power drained across the station. Fire ripped through conduits. Structural alarms screamed in a dozen languages. Everything began to fail. Thilla collapsed to one knee. Jackson grabbed her. You okay? She looked at him dazed. He's leaving. What do you mean? She gasped. He's disconnecting. Inside her, the baby triggered an emergency protocol. A stasis pod rose from the floor, a hidden cradle previously sealed. In a burst of neural energy, he transferred. Not born in the traditional sense extracted through thought alone. His pulse vanished from Thilla's body and appeared within the pod. The cradle clicked shut. Alive, perfect, independent. He made the choice, Thilla whispered. He didn't wait for us. Reed scanned the pod. Vital signs are stable. DNA integrity perfect. But his consciousness was active before birth. That's impossible. Jackson stared in awe. He's not human. He's not Valtteri. He's the next step. But the station had reached critical. We need to leave, Reed shouted. Now. Jackson grabbed the cradle. Thilla stumbled, caught herself and nodded. They ran. Corridors collapsed behind them. Decks exploded in flame. Artificial gravity gave out, then returned violently. Thilla clutched the wall, bleeding from her temple, but never let go of Jackson's hand. He carried the cradle like it was the most sacred object in the galaxy. They reached the hangar just as the final containment fields began to fail. Jackson tossed the cradle into the scout ship. Reed jumped into the pilot seat and began launch protocols. Thilla hesitated, looked back once at the station. Goodbye, she whispered, and thank you. Then they launched. The moment they cleared the bay, Orus 3 folded into itself. Not an explosion, a silent reversal, like history being erased. The war ended not with a treaty, but with silence. Weeks later, no one knew where they were. Jackson, Thilla, Reed, and the child were ghosts. The galaxy was different now. News of Krell's death, the collapse of Orus 3, and the mysterious signal that rebroadcast Thilla's confession had gone viral. Entire planets rebelled. The purest codes were questioned. Thex's forces fractured. They called the child many things: the singularity, the golden code, the hybrid prophet, but none had seen him. His location was secret, his power unknown. But his existence was undeniable. He had rewritten reality before he had even drawn a first breath. In the quiet shadow of a rogue moon, Thilla watched her son sleep. The cradle emitted soft pulses. Jackson stood behind her arms, crossed eyes filled with quiet awe. He chose us, he whispered. No, Thilla corrected. He chose hope. Outside, the stars spun slowly. Something new was coming. And this time it wouldn't be born from war. It would be born from him.